I'm someone who has consumed my fair share of horror media over the years. Whether it be the psychological turmoil an Ari Aster film brings, the quiet, suspenseful mystery of Haunting of Hill House, or the intense primal scares you feel while low on ammo in Dead Space. It's something I've loved since I was a young lad, first discovering the brilliant practical effects of John Carpenter's The Thing. But there has always been something that has instantly ruined the reputation a piece of horror media holds in my cerebellum. And it's when that oh-so-fine line between scary and funny is crossed. My immersion is usually broken, the veil comes down, and whatever I'm engaging with no longer sends that tingle down my spine. But that isn't the case with Junji Ito and his horror manga, which more often than you think has tickled my funny bone. The reason I can still enjoy the body horror that fills the pages of an Ito book, but not the funny red guy in Insidious, comes down to one thing: intention. A lot of these horror movies that have you in a fit of giggles and simultaneously giving it a green tomato comes down to the fact that the director didn't intend for these scenes to be funny. Horror, like humor, often walks a fine line between good and bad, and are watched by the most observant viewers. So when a certain scene veers too far into the absurd, or when the makeup and effects look a little silly at the wrong angle, it can quickly drain the tension for a portion of the audience, and have the whole movie be tainted with a feeling it wasn't trying for. This is often the case with so bad they're good style horror movies. But even certain movies that have scored well with critics have had me laughing when I didn't want to be. I know The Conjuring is a well enough liked horror movie, but when that freak on top of the cabinet gets a Quentin Tarantino zoom and jumps off like the Green Goblin, I can't help but laugh. And then the rest of the movie has a lighter tone because of it. Junji Ito, on the other hand, thrives on this closeness between horror and humor. As a storyteller, Ito looks at the absurdity that can accompany the macabre. Goosebumps triggered by a gruesome character or situation might be followed by a chuckle at the same bizarre instance. Few artists fuse agony and comedy as well as Ito does, though he claims he is often aiming for an understated humor. My comical intentions are up to my readers to perceive as they choose, he says. Certainly, some of my works and characters have a more obvious sense of humor than others, but if it's truly a horror story, the humor must be restrained and more veiled. There is intention behind his use of humor. He knows when to keep it subtle and also when to dial it up, using it to complement the horror as opposed to ruining it. Take, for example, one of Ito's most prolific stories, The Hanging Balloons. Seeing a giant balloon with a character's face floating across the sky is quite the comical spectacle, at least to me, especially when first sighted. But there is something genuinely terrifying about this imagery as well, knowing it's seeking you and will not stop until it finds you. The clear symbolism of self-destruction, you being your own worst enemy, really sent a genuine feeling of fear and discomfort through my body. The comedy is used here to disarm you into thinking the threat isn't that serious, and then before you know it, page after page, characters are meeting their doom. Every story has your psyche unstable by flip-flopping between moments of too creepy for the big screen and chuckles at the situation's unfolding. This keeps you from ever feeling at ease, and sometimes has you questioning whether you should laugh or scream over a single image. If you want to see the comedy aspect utilized to its highest degree, Yawn and Moo is Ito in peak comedy form. He depicts his wife and himself, along with their two cats, in his classic horrific style, to show how his cats must view them when they try to overwhelm them with affection. It's hilarious and cute, and the least spooky thing he has on offer. Tomie, for me, is the work of his that lands almost equally with frights and laughs, jumping from hilarious panels like this to horrifying panels like this. Ito loves to deal with heavy themes, and often ends stories with a sense of doom, much like his biggest influence, H.P. Lovecraft. But he usually makes sure to contrast that terror with a quip or acknowledgement of the absurdity of the situation, maybe to remind you that this is all for your enjoyment. People often like to joke about the demeanor of Ito being so jovial when compared with the art he produces. But I say that same demeanor shines through in his books if you pay attention. There's a reason a lot of people with trauma, like myself, cope with dark humor. There's a weird kind of comfort in the absurdly scary. Laughter is the best medicine after all. Hopefully in the future, we see more films and games ride the horror comedy tightrope as brilliantly as Junji Ito.